content moderation it's not just a can of worms. It's like a warehouse full of cans of worms.
Made Daily. What the heck?
This is going in the episode, by the way.
Yeah, what is going on here? Why I can't...
Yeah. Where's the thing? I lost it.
There it is. Hello, and welcome to the Made Daily podcast. I'm John Michael Thomas.
And I'm Peter Hageman.
Made Daily covers our favorite stories from tech to social media.
Our expert thoughts and opinions about information security, website design and development,
and other random stories from the internet. This week's episode is brought to you by Cinemechanics, the premier camera and lens rental house. When you're shooting your next film or popular streaming platform TV series, Cinemechanics will ensure your project stays next level, and you should come shoot in Minnesota and take advantage of the new Minnesota tax incentive. And
especially the wonderful weather we have here in January. Actually, it's pretty nice today. And Made Daily version 5, the all-in-one secure website builder with built-in data collection tools and secure customer portals.
Check out a demo at madedaily.com. And one of our way back internet favorites, Dramatic Chipmunk. All right, let's talk about our first story, Pierre. We'll let you give us the rundown and the details. But Volkswagen massive data leak caused by failure to secure AWS, Amazon Web Services credentials. So the incident was a leak exposed 15 million vehicles due to improperly secured AWS credentials. What does that mean?
So AWS is Amazon Web Services. It's Amazon has a whole business line where they rent computing resources to other companies, and you can use Amazon's infrastructure, and it's a whole massive business of theirs, at least as big, if not bigger, than their e-commerce side, right? So AWS functions in, like all the public clouds, you need access credentials to be able to get into AWS resources and access computers, access databases, etc. So what happened here was a failure at the most basic level of information security architecture. They have Volkswagen or their supplier failed to adequately protect internal development systems. So attackers and the security researcher who identified the issue were able to get in and dump, and so view at the code level internal systems, and embedded in that code were these Amazon credentials that they were able to use to get in and exfiltrate data on these 15 million vehicles. They weren't able to take over the cars, but they were able to get location data and historical data and all kinds of information about the owners of the vehicles.
So a couple questions for maybe people and even myself. In what world would you have your Amazon credentials inside your app?
Well, any time you need to connect to an Amazon resource from a different Amazon resource, you would need some form of credential. Amazon has all kinds of ways of doing that. Some of them are more secure than others. The least secure way is actually having the token embedded in your code the way that they did.
So you're saying, okay, you're running through the code script is running. It gets to a point where it says, okay, I need to access something from another resource. In order to access that resource, I need to use this token or get in through this door. So the problem is then they're not encrypting that stuff.
Right.
They're not protecting it. They're just leaving it there raw and open.
Yeah. And so encryption is hard and complicated. And so it's very easy to get it wrong. So even if it were encrypted, oftentimes if you're not adequately protecting these internal systems, then if you're encrypting something and then the key to decrypt that thing is in the same space as the encrypted data, then it's the same as not encrypting. It's trivial to decrypt the data. So even if it were encrypted, clearly the encryption key was in the same data package. In this case, I don't think it was encrypted at all. So yeah, and the other thing is, it's never a good idea to embed credentials in a code object like this. It should be inside an encrypted store, or it should be in the server environment. Or ideally, Amazon allows you to, based on the machine that's running and the environment it's in, you can set up rules to say this machine can connect to this resource, and so only that machine would be able, virtual machine, right? Only that compute container is able to access the resource. That would be a more secure way of architecting that system. But knowing how to do that, it takes knowledge, it takes experience, and so it's very easy to just say, and Amazon makes it easy I'm going to set it up and run it, and it works, and we're done. And a lot of times people don't think about the security at all.
Yeah, well, it looks like that this also violated GDPR and their own terms of service, and it hopefully, this stuff's going to happen. It's going to happen to everybody. You hope that people just start catching this stuff earlier, and do their due diligence. And it sounds like this was found by a researcher, which is good.
Well, maybe we don't know who else had access to that data, right? I think the bigger issue is exactly that. The GDPR violation is there because that data should have been protected. It shouldn't have been, it should have been encrypted. It should have been not made publicly available. And then the follow-up question to that is, why are they keeping this data anyway? Like, why do they need to know everywhere I'm driving? What possible use?
I think,
except for advertising, right?
I think that's a good point. I think that it brings up the discussion of you want to collect data for your app. What is actual data that you actually need to know? You can collect data and collect it anonymously, right? You could collect data on an engine performance, right? You could collect data on the engines. You could collect data on stuff relating to the car, things like that. But you could also do it in an anonymous way. You could also let people opt in to share this information with you, which is part of what GDPR is about also.
Yeah, right. And my opinion on that is, if you want me to share my car information with you because I bought this car, it belongs to me, right? Then pay me. Why are you just stealing that data from my vehicle without consent and without informing me, and then holding it in an insecure place and doxing me, when you lose it? That's not okay.
And that, I think, brings up the bigger question of the broader implications of, consumer privacy. Like, why do you need to know that information? And it trickles into a lot of other industries too. And we've got this local, lawsuit that's going on in Minnesota, and it looks like neighboring Illinois, that are going to sue John Deere over repair monopoly allegations. And so the deal there is, John Deere says it needs to use this proprietary software in order to do the repairs of the tractor. It all seems great, and it seems great in theory. Like, these companies are like, yeah, well, we'll have control, we'll be able to manage this stuff. But ultimately, this kind of thing is just going to continue to bump up against people's rights to use the things that they purchase. And
and that John Deere thing, that's not about. It's not about, we're going to have an effective repair. It's about controlling it, and saying that, third-party repair people can't access. And so, and you say, what is VW?
Authorized sellers only is what they're saying. Yeah.
So that they can charge money to license access to that and make ongoing revenue instead of just a single sale of, say, a tractor. And VW, you know exactly what they're doing with this location data. They're selling it. They're selling it to other companies or data brokers who use it to create targeted advertising. Say, oh, we know this person drives by Target every day, so we're going to start sending them Target ads, right? And then Target buys those ads, and the data broker makes money, and VW makes money, and we lose always as consumers.
Yeah.
I think this whole mass surveillance culture that we've created for ourselves is not good for us. It's not good for anyone.
Yeah, but we still need to interact with each other, and we still need to share information, and we need to do it in a safe and compliant way.
Yeah, and I think it needs to be opt-in and consensual, right? If VW says, "Hey, I want to know where you're driving so that I can sell that data to advertisers," who's going to say yes to that? Yeah. Nobody's going to say yes to that. Yeah. And so kind of back to John Deere, I think the right to repair laws, you see them in you're starting to see them in Europe, and hopefully we can start getting some of that stuff here. I see that when I have to buy toner for my HP printer from HP, and I can't get toner anywhere else, and then the toner cartridge costs like almost as much as the printer did originally. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Right? That's the new thing with the toner cartridges. That's a really bad, really bad thing. I think eventually people are going to get fed up enough with some of this, though. Or other companies will say, we have an alternative because
except that there are so few companies that they can just all do it, right? So we can't really vote with our wallets when there aren't any alternatives that aren't doing the same predatory behavior.
Yep. All right, well, let's segue into
more
Facebook
behavior.
Meta. I'm sure everybody saw the Mark Zuckerberg, Joe Rogan interview and the announcement that they are now in the United States. They're going to still do this in other countries, apparently, but they will end fact-checking as Silicon Valley prepares for a new administration. It's just going to end their partnerships with third-party fact-checkers. It's going to move some operations to Texas because there's a thing that Texas is less liberal, I guess, is kind of what the argument is. And they helped create this fact-checking system during the 2016 election in the face of mass information being spread on socials. This fact-checking became standard on other platforms, and now we're into this. We're not going to fact-check anything kind of mode with all of these social networks. And there's rationales. There's just too much censorship. Sure, I get it. There's an administration that feels that, censorship and fact-checking harms them or whatever.
Because they want to lie constantly and not be called on it.
And I mean, as a follower of all of these platforms, I was, on Twitter, I was on Twitter really early. I was on Facebook really early. The stuff that I saw firsthand, even just not even beyond like just blatant like misinformation, was manipulated information. I'd watch a family member share an article and I'd go, wait a minute, this just something's off about this. And you go and you find out that it was a blogger basically with a specific point of view, and they were like, and they gave their point of view, and then this family member was identifying with that point of view. But then my thought was, this is not even real news. This is opinion news. And we've gone through this world now with this opinion news and or whatever. And I just think that this is a really dangerous place to go, and I won't be on that platform personally. Like why would I? It's just going to become like, what's the expression? At some point it just gets to be so outlandish and bad that it's just like, what's the point?
Well, and to say that it's about censorship is, it's a complete lie, right? Like, it's not about censorship. It's not about free speech. Like, fact checkers are not politically biased. A fact is a fact. Everything that's going on right now it's not about truth. It's not about facts. It's about power. It's about control. And I think the owners of these platforms, billionaires, Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, understand that if they can control the narrative, then they can gain power for themselves and then gain money. Right? It's all about money, power, and control. And everything else is just a facade.
In a lot of ways, it's like, that platform was a way to connect with friends and find out about friends. Then at some point, and that's how a lot of platforms start, right? It's about connecting with people. Then it becomes, okay, well, now we've got to make money on this platform. So now we're going to push it full of ads. We're going to let a bunch of news, sharing happen. And then this like fundamental thing about like communicating with each other starts to become eroded. And then it's a dangerous path, because I bet you if you had the same conversation in person that you had with those 50 people that you're arguing with on Facebook, it'd be a very different conversation. It would be you, because the thing you don't get when you're just typing a bunch of characters is you don't get to say, well, hang on, I understand what you're saying and what you're coming from with that, but have you thought about this, and this, and this, and this? And I guess that's the thing I would say about encouraging stuff is like, sure, okay, they're not gonna fact check things, great, but we also have a duty as people to just not believe everything because it's on a social media platform. You don't believe everything that's on the internet. I mean,
people tend to believe what confirms their own pre-existing views, though.
And
so if you start seeing a lot of articles and posts that confirm your existing worldview, then you're gonna get more and more solidified into that.
And that's the I guess the beauty and the also horrible part about social media is you can end up in a little bit of an echo chamber. And I think it can happen whether you're conservative view, whether you're very liberal views. I mean, there's crazy everywhere. But I think that the thing that's disappointing about this is it's not about helping people have a better discourse. It's just trying to appease, the loudest, yellingest person who says that their voices are not being heard.
Well, and I think the most dangerous part about this is it's removing even the tiny sliver of protection that previously existed for some of the most vulnerable and marginalized groups, right? So we're talking about, transgender, we're talking about immigrants, or minorities, people who already kind of are at the bottom of the stack when it comes to privilege are now, they're just going, the pile on is going to be even worse.
I mean, we've been through this for the last, it's been more than 4 years. It's probably been more where somebody gets asked, well, where did you hear that? Oh, I heard it on Facebook. And so I think people kind of know that sometimes when you heard it on Facebook, but it's a psychological like thing that happens. I do think, though, I will just add that I think we cannot talk about this topic without talking a little bit about what happened with TikTok over the weekend, because again, I adopt these programs because I feel like that's important to me as learning and being a digital creator and working in these spaces, I found something very interesting the last 4 years of watching the wave of people grow on TikTok, and why I think this sort of stuff is happening. In some ways, I believe in a little bit of a TikTok's directly correlated. And what I mean by that is TikTok's a very different app than Facebook. In TikTok, there's the ability for like, just like we're doing here, you have your live stream. I can join your live stream. 2, 3 other people can join our live stream. And you can say, you know what? I want to talk about information security. And people will literally have a live debate. And so for the last however many years, people are doing that. Like, hey, I'm a conservative. I want to debate other people who aren't conservatives, or I'm a liberal person. I'm voting for blue. I want to vote for blue. I'm voting for red. I want to vote for red. And some of that discourse has been very, very interesting, but it's person to person.
Mm-hmm.
And so in a lot of ways, which is interesting, is like, people are very upset that TikTok's going to be potentially shut down. They're upset with Meta for lobbying Congress to get it shut down. And that's interesting is all those people that are on that platform, which is like 170 million. It's like half of America. I might not have the number exactly right. They're all saying on the platform, we're not going back to Meta. And it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I think all of these platforms have their place. I think some are good for, good for different things. But I think that it's really a battle about where am I getting my information? What is my information that I'm getting? And how do I know what I'm getting is true?
Yeah, and I think I think we've talked in a previous episode about local journalism and how important the local media is, and newspapers, and how they're kind of starving for air right now, money right now, because people aren't buying newspaper subscriptions anymore. But trained journalists are worth their weight in gold in an environment where anybody can say anything, right? It's hard to, and and especially now you have LLM or AI generated content that can sound so plausible and so well thought out, and yet be completely false, right? And have citations and quote unquote facts to back them up that are just completely made up.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I'm blanking on the name, but there was a phrase that was coined. I think it was NPR did a story, and they included some social media journalists in the social media news person who was in this article. She took offense to what they quote unquote claimed her. It was like social journalist, or it wasn't that, but it was something like that. And she's like, no, I'm a legitimate news journalist. I work independently. And I think it's kind of an interesting little battle that's going on. We talk about, we applaud like startups, and we applaud like businesses people who come up with ideas, and, like came up with Google and all that.
Yeah.
But now we're trying to control independent voices in the media now, because, well, ratings are dropping on those things. Technology's changed. We don't go to HBO and have a cable package. We subscribe to different things. And so it'll be interesting to see where things go here.
That sort of citizen journalism is, I think it's an interesting concept, but again, you run into the same problem where it's really hard to know who to trust unless you are already familiar with the topics they're talking about, and you can say, yes, they're saying the right things. I'm going to trust what they say from now on because I know that they were right about these things, right? But which is why it was valuable having news organizations that actually told the truth when that was a thing, because then we would know, okay, if I'm going to Star Tribune and reading articles, then I can be reasonably sure that they're correct, right? And again, with such low barriers to entry on the internet, it's really hard to know, is this citizen journalist telling the truth, or are they just completely
Yeah,
lying to me?
in the example I'm using, this person is just reporting the news that, as an anchor, any anchor would, that would report the news from the AP
Hmm.
or Wired or whatever. They're just become a personality that's a trusted source. They're no different. They're actually no different than people who liked going to get their news from Tom Brokaw, or any of those, Jon Stewart on the Daily Show. The thing is I think, which is the thing that's unique, and this goes back to the previous story too, is technology is changing, and when technology evolves, problems arise, and it's important for people to start to say, no, we're not going to tolerate that.
Yeah.
And then hopefully responsible lawmakers will put some guardrails around some things. But it seems like we just are going to continue to have a wild, wild west every couple. I mean, we didn't even have this stuff 20 years ago.
Yeah.
2000, I don't even think, maybe Facebook was just starting to be on the scene.
Hmm.
This is a new phenomenon. It's starting to match these, Blade Runner movies and all these things of the past. This stuff's starting to come to life.
Back
But
in the
it's
good old days.
interesting.
Yeah, and and don't get me wrong, right? Content moderation it's not just a can of worms. It's like a warehouse full of cans of worms, right? Especially when you're talking about the scale of Facebook or former Twitter, and so even with machine learning and algorithms and all that, there's so much content that gets generated that moderating it is, it's I hesitate to say impossible, but it is quite the challenge, and I think that's why um, a lot of these platforms are saying we're just not going to do it. It's your responsibility to know what's real and what's not. But I think that's
Well,
that's an abdication of duty. If you're going to run a platform of this size, then you need to have the structures in place to be able to maintain, at least.
I agree that I think it's something that, so first of all, yes, we've got, this right to free speech and free press and these things, but I think this has been the 20-year battle about social media companies, is where is their role? And clearly they don't want to be regulated. And I can understand that. They don't want guardrails. Um, but, you know, harmful things have happened to people. Like, people have
Happen
actually
all the time. Yeah.
gotten really hurt. But I think I think the healthiest thing out of this, Pierre, and you tell me if you agree, is you got to have the debate about whether or not you want your stuff fact checked. You got to debate. Like, part of it is you got to, we're on our own ultimately.
I, I I think that anybody who has faith in the things that they're talking about should have no problem being fact checked, right? And I welcome it, right? If somebody watches our cast here and says, "No, that's wrong. What you said was wrong, and here's why, and here's the evidence to back that up," I welcome that. Like because I, and we both have a desire to be speaking truth, right? And the only people who don't want fact checking are the people who want to lie to us, right? So if somebody says, I don't want to be fact checked, don't believe anything they say because they're probably lying to you.
Yeah. I always kind of will say too that, you know, not everything's one side, other side, black or white. There's lots of gray, and um, but yes, there sometimes are facts, and sometimes we learn that the facts we thought were facts can change. Like, historical facts can change.
And
But
and
it's
there's
but it's being responsible and having a robust discourse, and listening to each other, and trying to come to, I think the biggest thing that we need to get to and back to is like coming to some common ground. And no, we're not always going to agree, but we can come to some sort of common ground and find a middle, find a, it doesn't even like, just find a sense of understanding, even if we just don't agree on things.
Right. I think that we can admit that we can agree that there are differing opinions about how to solve problems, but I don't think that there's room for like different realities where you say, it's hot outside today, and I say, no, it's cold outside today, right? That's subjective, right? Maybe I think it's cold and you think it's hot, but okay. We'll say it's raining and you say, no, it's not raining, it's sunny. Well, one of us is right, right? Like both of those things can't be true at the same time. So there was this, I don't even remember who came up with it, but the alternative facts way back in, whatever, the mid 2000s. Like there's no alternative facts. A fact is a fact. Something is either true or it's not true. There can be opinions on things, and if we can agree on this is a problem, we can discuss what we think the solutions are. Right. That's right. There's discussion to be had there, but we have to agree that this is a problem. You can't just be like, no, that's not a problem.
Right.
That's not
right. And what I have to say to that is this.
Yeah, good times.
There we go.
Dramatic Chipmunk, way back favorite. Any meme that gets its own South Park episode, has made it into the national conversation. There was the Dramatic Chipmunk, and then this guy, the Numa guy, he was on South Park too. Times.
That's the new thing when we think something needs to be fact checked. Let's play that guy.
Right. If it needs to be fact checked, just check. Did they say it on The Simpsons? If they did, then it's probably true.
What I thought was funniest about this prairie dog thing. So viral fame 2007. But what's funny is that it appeared on shows like South Park, the Powerpuff Girls, and was even used as a distraction tactic by the Minnesota Golden Gophers during football games. That's hilarious.
that is pretty funny. But you know what actually is kind of funny about that South Park episode is they were really making fun of these videos for being being viral and being so popular, and saying, I'm going to spend my internet points, I'm going to, my millions of views, I'm going to go buy, something with it. And what I think is funny about that is that was back in a time where you couldn't, like, having a video with millions of views didn't mean you were making, money off of it. Whereas now, a viral video is real money.
50 million views. Yeah.
Which, is nothing to Mr. Beast, but, at the time it was impressive.
Well, we'll see what kind of comments we get on this episode. Got a little deeper than just the tech talk today. That can be our next show, Tech Talk. Anyway, thanks for joining us today. If you want to leave a comment, tell us, fact check us, I guess.
Yeah.
Or if you want to check out any of the other stories or topics we covered, or check out the Dramatic Chipmunk, head over to maydaily.com/blog. And if you have a story you'd like to share, or you'd like to have us review your site or your application, leave us a comment.
And don't forget to subscribe. Click the button.
Until next time,
stay secure.
Made Daily.